Good morning, students. Now, moving towards part 2 of Unit 5. What's the evidence? See, activity 3. Like the blind man and the elephant, everyone has a different point of view. See, this blind man and the elephant, that poem we have done in Unit 3. And see that everyone, we know that everyone has a different point of view to express the thing. So people interpret poem in different ways depending on their point of view. So work with a group of 3 or to read some different interpretation of the road not taken. Each student will choose one interpretation. Read your choice carefully, and then tell your group a summary of the interpretation you read. Use the same ideas you learned about writing. You have to use all the ideas that we have learned writing the summary, and also reference the source and tell the main idea and that express the main idea. So let me read it out, interpretation 1, and then I'll tell you the summary of it and also the main idea. Sometimes the choices we make have far reaching consequences. See, it is said that when sometimes we make a choice, that they have a far reaching consequences. So, have you made choices that are less risky, or have you followed the beaten track? The poem The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost is about the choices that one makes in life. See, in this poem, it is about the choice that we make in our life, and it tells about a man who comes to a fork in the road and he is traveling upon, and he feels sorry that he cannot travel both the paths. See, he feels very sorry that he is not able to walk on the both path. He has to choose one only. So Frost uses this fork in the road to represent. He uses a fork where in the road. Why? To represent his points that man's life, where he has choose a direction. He has to choose a direction he wishes to take in the life. And as he think about this is his decision, he looked down one path as far as he can see, trying to foresee what life will be like if he walks that path. He then gazes at the other and decides the outcome of going down that path would be just as pleasant. See, at this point, he concludes that the trial that he has been less traveled would be more rewarding when he reaches the end of it. And the man then decided that he will save the other path for another day, even though he knows that one path leads to another and that he would get a chance to go back. The man then says that he will be telling the story with a sigh someday in the future, suggesting that he will wonder what life would have been like if he had chosen the more walked path, even though the path he chose has made all the differences. See, in this, it is said that everyone has a different point of view. See, now when we talk about the main idea of interpretation 1, that is the poem The Road Not Taken, that is written by Robert Frost, and this is about all the choices that one make in the life. See, one choice is little risky, and when we talk about the other one, that is beaten track. See, at the fork, he conclude that the less traveled track would be more rewarding when he reaches the end of it. And he will keep the other path for some other day in the future. He thought that he'll walk on that path some other day, even though he knows that one path leads to another and that he won't get a chance to go back. But someday in future, he'll be telling the story with a sigh, suggesting that he will wonder what life would have been if he had chosen the more trodden path, and even though the path he chose has made all the differences in his life. So see, this was the interpretation 1 summary of it, and what information this author used to express the main idea. See what information he has used over here, the author. See, this author uses information that is directly taken from the poem, that is analysis of the poem. He talks about the fork in the roads to represent a points in man's life, where he has to choose the direction he wishes to take in his life. And he mentions that the traveler chooses one path, saving the another for another day. And even though he knows that one path leads to another, and he won't get a chance to go back. So this was the information that this author used to explain his express the main ideas. And now when we talk about interpretation 2, let me read it out for you. The Road Not Taken is a narrative poem of four stanza and is one of the Robert Frost's most popular works. See, it's a most popular work of Robert Frost, and it is also one of the most misunderstood poem also. See, the final line when we talk about I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the differences. See, often that take literally, and it has an interpretation mean that poet is an individualist with a spirit of adventure. So it is doubtful that the poem has this meaning. Whatever the difference the choices might have made, it was not made on the basis of a clearly understood differences, that is between the two paths that opened up before the traveler. The poet admits in the second and the third stanza that both paths may be equally worn and equally leaf covered, and it is only in his future recollection that he will choose to call one of the two roads the one he took less traveled by. See, the irony of the poem lies in the distance between what the speaker has just told us about the roads being the same and what he says his letter claims will be. See, Eleanor Sickles, a literary critic, says that the poem is about the human tendency to wobble illogical, illogically indecision, and led to assume that the decision was, after all, logical and enormously important. See, I read this stanza, this interpretation too. So now let me tell you the main idea. What is about this interpretation too? See, the road not taken is one of the most misunderstood poem, and the final lines, that is, I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the differences. See, that indicates that the poet is an individualistic with what? With the spirit of adventure. See, but when we talk, this interpretation is doubtful also. Also, at the fork of the roads, once he chooses the less traveled one and left the other, hoping that someday in the future he will take it. And but in the end, when we talk, he says that the one he chose made all the differences for him. See, according to one view, it is the human tendency to wobble illogically in decision and later on to assume that the decision was, after all, what it was, logical and enormously important. So this was a summary of interpretation 2. And see, what information does this author use to express the main idea? See, here the author talks about the human psychology to express or to justify the main idea. Here he says that it always happened to every man that when he has to choose from any option, he's always confused looking for better option. And see, even after choosing one, he thinks of the others, that he has not been able to choose that one. See, this human tendency is the information that the author focuses on this interpretation too. So that was about interpretation 2. And now let's moving towards interpretation 3. Let me read it out full interpretation for you, and then I'll give you the summary of this. Many readers have overstated the importance of the road not taken to Frost's work. Frost biographer grapher tells us in 1914 Frost arrived in England and settling at Gloucestershire. He soon became a close friend of Edward Thomas. Later, when reader persisted in misreading the road not taken, Frost insisted that his poem had been intended as a sly jest. See, sly jest means what? intention which is hidden in it, at the expense of his friend and fellow poet. For Thomas had invariably fused over irrevocable choices. Irrevocable choices means what? Made able to change it. And minor sort made on daily walks with Frost in 1914, shortly before the writing of the poem. Later, Frost insisted that in his case the line "and that has made all the differences," so taken straight, was all wrong. Of course, it hasn't, he persisted. It's just a poem, you know. In 1915, moreover, his sole intention was to twit Thomas. Frost had frequently taken long countryside walks with Thomas. Repeatedly, Thomas would choose a route which might enable him to show his American friend a rare plant or a special vista. But then Thomas would regret the choice he made and would sigh over what he might have shown Frost if they had taken a better direction. Frost teased Thomas for those wasted regrets. Frost found something quaintly romantic in sighing over what might have been. Such a course of action was a road never taken by Frost. If we are able to believe Frost and his biographer, the road not taken was intended to serve as Frost's gentle jest at Thomas' expense. See, when we talk about this interpretation 3, see what is the main idea of this interpretation 3? Let me tell you. See, according to Frost biographer, the importance of the poem The Road Not Taken has been overstated, and he tells that his poem had been intended as a joke, all the expense of his friend and fellow poet Edward Thomas. See, for Thomas invariably gave unnecessary attention to some matters, to choices impossible to change. See, and later what happened? The Frost insisted that in his case, the line "and that has made all the differences." See, which is taken straight and was all wrong. Frost and Thomas went on long walks together. Thomas would choose a route to show his American friend a rare plant or a special vista, but Thomas would regret the choice had made and would sigh over what he might have shown Frost if they had taken a better direction. So this is how what Frost teased Thomas. So thus this poem is nothing but a gentle jest at Thomas' expense. So this was the summary, that is the main idea of interpretation 3. And what information does this author use to express the main idea? See, here the author uses information given by Frost biographer. The information includes details about Frost's time, his friendship with Edward Thomas, and the detail about their age, they are going for a walk, etc. And we can also derive the details of information how Frost used to tease his friend Thomas, and hence the poem is written as a gentle jest at the cost of a friend. So that was in this interpretation and I hope you all have understood it. Now moving towards activity 4. In this activity, compare the past with the present. And this sentence shows situation in the past. Read them carefully and write a corresponding sentence about the same situation in the present. So let me read out the situation in past and I'll tell you about the situation that in present. So first one, there was a time when car parking was no problem at all. See, in situation what is in the past, there was no problem at all car parking, and in what is the situation when we talk in present? See, nowadays a car parking has become a big problem, and before it was not a problem. And when in the past, when we talk about second sentence, there was no way to know which road was best back then. See, in the present situation, see, nowadays there are many ways to know which road is the best back then. And the third one, policemen wore long wool coats and tall hats in those days. See, in present days, policemen in these days wear khaki or white pants and shirt with grey caps on their heads. And fourth one, in the past, living a fence unpainted was unheard of. And when we talk about the present, nowadays building hardly have fences. They have compound walls well painted. And in earlier times, people believed in giants and fairies. And see, in these days, people hardly believe in giants and fairies. So, this was about activity 4. I hope you all have understood this part. Thank you for listening.